Welcome everyone to our breakout focus session, Planning for Data Loss in Office 365, sponsored by Spanning by EMC, who we want to welcome as a new sponsor to this event. As usual, we will be accepting questions and comments through the chat feature on your display, and any that we don't have time for, we will be forwarding on to our presenter for follow-up after completion of this session. Our speaker for this session is Gina Rosenthal, Spanning Principal Product Marketing Manager. Gina has supported enterprise tech for almost 15 years as a product marketer, blogger, community manager, technical training developer, and sysadmin. A 2016 vExpert and EMC Elect member, she's currently concentrating her skills on product marketing for Spanning's backup for Office 365. And now, Gina, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thanks very much, and hello everybody out there. Happy to have you and excited to talk about Office 365 and how Spanning can help your experience when you move to Office 365. The things I want to talk with you about today are the ways you can lose data when you move your applications to Office 365, how Microsoft helps you restore lost data, and how you really need to think about and look for ways that can completely protect your data in Office 365. But I want to back up a little bit and talk more about cloud and how Office 365 fits into that kind of architecture. There's three different types of cloud deployment models that everyone has kind of agreed upon. And those deployment models are changing the way IT interacts with and supports their businesses. When everything was on-premises, as you see in the left-hand column, IT was responsible for everything, all of the disks, all of the servers, all of the storage, all of the virtualization, the networking, the admins, administrating the product, the application itself, the user, and the data. But the reason you go to the cloud is to let someone else take care of some of that for you, especially the network and the hardware, the virtualization. Is when you go to Internet as a Service or Platform as a Service or IaaS and PaaS, you give up a little bit of that control. But when you move to Software as a Service, you give up control of pretty much everything that was in your data center, including the application. But consistently throughout all of the different deployment models, you're still responsible for your users, for administrating the application, and for your company's data. And this has led to IT having less control and feeling a little out of control, I think. So the things we can do are manage policies, manage users, and make sure the data is flowing the way it should be. From now on, though, once you move to a SaaS model, you don't have any administration rights to the application. That means whatever the SaaS provider decides to use as the application is the application you're going to use, that version. You don't have root access to the OS, so you can't tweak things. You can't think about different ways to have a disaster recovery plan. You can't manage the virtual machines that might exist on. You just can't access that hardware stack at all. That's what the SaaS provider is doing for you. And it becomes into a very interesting situation for IT, because as you move to these cloud applications, when everything is on premises, you're used to protecting it all. It's very well protected. And as Jason Buffington here from ESG says, unless you're using one of the few SaaS data protection solutions, your data goes from well protected to unprotected. So let's bring this back to Microsoft and Office 365. Office 365 is a SaaS cloud deployment platform. For the sake of this discussion, we're going to concentrate on Exchange Online, in particular Mail, and OneDrive, to start looking at what does Microsoft do to protect the data that we put there, and where are the gaps where we need to step up and have a plan. I'm going to keep harping on this, but it's true. The responsibility for the data is shared. Microsoft is going to take very good care of your data where it exists in the hardware stack, in the IT infrastructure stack. So if there's a hardware failure, software failure, there's a hurricane or an earthquake or a power outage, Microsoft is going to make sure that these applications stay up and running so that your business stays running. And they're responsible for the data in those cases. You are, as an IT organization, once you trust Microsoft to host this data for you, you're still responsible for any human error, any programmatic errors, like people using add-ons to the different applications that are in Office 365, if you have people that are going to act maliciously, who are insiders, a disgruntled employee, that kind of thing, or external hackers, if they cause data loss, you're responsible for it. And then there's always viruses and malware to think of. So the responsibility for the data and keeping that data alive and safe is shared, but a big bulk of it is still on IT because it's still your data. And this is what Microsoft will tell you. With Office 365, it's your data, you own it, you control it. You're responsible for it, and really that's what's keeping your business alive and afloat. You want to be all in control of that data. So where you going to look in a SaaS application for what the service provider is going to do for you is in their SLAs. So there are limitations to Microsoft SLAs, and this really small eye chart is kind of a list. I'll hit on a couple of them that are kind of pertinent to what we're talking about, specifically data loss. They will tell you that they're not responsible for natural disaster, war, acts of terrorism, all the rest of it. They won't be responsible if you use services or hardware or software that Microsoft doesn't provide, so those add-ons. And they're not responsible for any kind of action that's taken by someone who gains access to the network by means of your passwords or equipment. So now, to be fair to Microsoft, think back about what we talked about. Microsoft is responsible for that data center, for keeping that application live and well so that your users can access it and do their work. And this is really what this SLA is all about, is what's the uptime of that application. But you'll notice there's no mention of restoring data here. So if you do happen to lose data because of any of these things, you may very well be on your own to try to figure out how to restore it. So this is kind of just something for you to sit and ponder on for a second. With Exchange, how did you lose data on premises? What happened that made you have to do restores? Because I'm betting some of the ways that you lost data on premises are the same ways you're going to lose data in Exchange Online. Here are some of the primary ways that people lose data in Exchange Online. Users can still delete and purge email messages. And when they do that, it's gone. We're going to look about that in depth in a minute. Admins can misconfigure policies. And policies that admins configure on Office 365 take effect based on the file date. So if you tell Microsoft in Exchange Online to delete something that is older than 2 years, as soon as you apply the policy, everything that's older than 2 years will disappear. You can have sync issues, lots of sync issues with mobile devices and people trying to sync those to Exchange Online. And malicious activity can delete data. So Microsoft's job is, anytime there's a delete command, if it comes from an authorized user, they are going to delete that data. That's what you want them to do. You don't want them squirreling away all of our data just in case you want them to restore it. We want, if we say delete, that our SaaS provider is going to delete it. So they can't tell if a user is malicious or not. They can just tell if it's an authorized user. So this can happen. So let's kind of look at one data loss event and kind of walk through what actually happens with the architecture. And you'll notice that this architecture is just like Exchange on premises, right? So you might have a user that decides there's way too much user in my email. In my inbox, let me clean this up. So press the delete button. When you delete email, in most cases, it goes straight to the deleted items folder. Sometimes users set their Outlook client to delete the deleted item folders when they close Outlook, or they can set it up so that they can just, with certain key combinations, you skip the deleted item folder altogether. But in this case, this guy deleted all this email because it was just too much for him. Then it's in the deleted items folder, and he's like, nope, too crowded. I want to get rid of these permanently. Let me get them in the. Let me delete them again. They'll show up in the recovered items folder, and we'll walk through exactly how long we have on this in a minute for default times. But if a user puts it in the recovered deleted items folder, they can see it for a certain amount of time. They have the option to purge. If they purge the emails out of there, it will go to a purge folder for a certain amount of time, for a short amount of time, but then it's off the tenant, it's gone. Inevitably, you will probably find out in a couple of weeks, wait, I really needed that email, can you help me? The answer is no. If you don't have a backup solution in place, you cannot help them, and Microsoft can't help you help them. So this is the timeline for how this actually works. I've left the deleted items folder off. The deleted items folder is set to unlimited retention. And Microsoft did that, trying to find a way to help people out so they didn't accidentally delete email off the tenant. But like we saw earlier, users can still delete things out of the deleted items folder or just skip the deleted items folder altogether. So let's concentrate on this recoverable items folder. Users and admins can see and restore in this folder for 14 days. After the 14 days, only if an admin has enabled this, they can see this recoverable items folder for another 14 days and have the ability to restore that data. Once it's deleted, once it's run its course, whether it's 14 days or 30 or 28 days, then it goes into the purges folder. An admin can see it there for another 14 days, but then it's purged off of the tenant completely. You can put email users on discovery hold, where admins can see and restore, but you have to use e-discovery tools, which we're going to talk about in a minute in detail, and you have to have done it before there was a data loss event. So as you can see, there is a window of time here where you can lose data permanently from Exchange Online. You can just go to community.office365.com, which is Microsoft's community for Office 365. You can see from admins and from support, Microsoft support, what happened. So these are just a couple of the accounts, but one of them is the retention policy set for 90 days and losing all the data. Can I get it back? You can't get it back. If you're having an employee that has deleted all their emails like we stepped through before, in the Microsoft support time, they'll tell you exactly what you can and can't do. All right, so let's talk about how you can lose data on OneDrive for Business. First, before we do that, let's talk about what is OneDrive for Business, because it is kind of new and kind of confusing. It was designed by Microsoft to be the one place where individual users go to see all of the files that they're working on. So this can be files that they own and they've created. They can also share files with others. It can be the files that other people have shared with them. So other individuals may have shared a file with them from their own OneDrive for Business. It could come because they're a member of a group and there's a bunch of files that they're all working together as a group. It could come because they have membership in a SharePoint site, and from OneDrive they can see all of those documents that have been shared with them from SharePoint as well. By default, the OneDrive for Business site, and that's all that this is it's a site. It's a stripped down site now, but it is a site. But by default, it's administered by users. There are ways for admins to change this, so that they can, for SharePoint admins to change it so that they can force whatever governance policies are in effect on-prem and now moving into Office 365. So from this point on in the presentation, I'm going to say OneDrive, but you need to know I mean OneDrive for Business. There's a OneDrive consumer. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about the OneDrive that gets created when you create a group. Just talking about OneDrive for Business. It's very confusing, so I have provided a beautiful beach view here to calm everybody down. Calm me down most of all. So think about, again, let's take a step back, since we're moving things that we've done on premises for a long time into the Microsoft Cloud. How did you lose data on premises? And since OneDrive is so new, there's a couple of ways to think about using this. My Sites is a good analogy to what OneDrive for Business is. So is people on their desktop having their My Documents, or maybe you had personal drives for everybody that you assigned to them that existed on some storage someplace. What happened if somebody lost data from one of those locations? Let you think about that for a second. Again, just like with Exchange, pretty good feeling. However, you lost data on premises, those are going to be the ways you can lose data when you're using OneDrive. So just like with Exchange, users can delete their own data. What's interesting here is if I'm in a situation where I'm sharing a file out with other people but I own it, anyone that I've shared that file with, they can also delete my data. What happens is the deleted files will go back into my recycle bin, and a timer starts ticking off. My admins can misconfigure policies here as well. And just like with Exchange, these take effect based on a file date. So if we've moved a bunch of files up, those file dates might be older than 2 years, and you might be surprised at how quickly the data will be deleted. There are sync client issues as well. Microsoft is working really hard on improving the sync client, but lots of people, for different reasons, still have to use the older sync client. And there have been cases, and we'll show one in a second, where these sync clients delete data from both the end client, end device, as well as from Office 365. The malicious activity gets really interesting with files, and especially files that you're syncing from a laptop. Ransomware is one of the more interesting ones and one of the scary ones. So if a laptop gets infected with ransomware and all of the files are encrypted, that's a change that automatically gets synced up to OneDrive for Business. And we've seen cases where, heard of cases where the ransomware is smart and it figures out that what it's attacking is actually SharePoint and there's versions, so it keeps locking up the versions until everything's locked up, so you'll have to pay a ransom to get the key to decrypt that encryption. This is really, really why you need backups, because if there's no known good place to go back to, you'll be in a lot of trouble, and you either lose your data or you'll be paying a hefty fee to some hackers. So let's go through another data loss event, this time in OneDrive. So this is Pat's OneDrive for Business, and in OneDrive for Business you have the place where all of your files are. Then when you delete them, they are going to go to a recycle bin, and then there's a second recycle bin. But he shared these two files with, he creates this PowerPoint presentation that he's working on. He needs Chris and Jerry to help him out with it. So it's a presentation he's going to give at a UserCon, and wants to make sure he's got all the right technical information in there. So they work for a little bit. Pat goes off and delivers the presentation, but then Chris gets really annoyed and decides to delete all of the presentations he has on his desktop, or all that he has on his OneDrive for Business. He wants to clean it up, only see his stuff. So it sits in the recycle bin. Pat doesn't even know it's in the recycle bin, perhaps. And after 93 days, it'll go to the second recycle bin. After 93 days, this is deleted off the tenant again, off the tenant for permanent as well. Maybe Pat needs to go back to it after a few months to do another UserCon. He just wants to update this, but the document's gone. So that's the interesting thing about OneDrive for Business. We have users and admins can see and restore for 93 days. So this is the interesting thing about OneDrive recovery folders. There is a recycle bin, and the users and the admins can see and restore data out of here for 93 days. Then there's a second recycle bin, and I've got an arrow here that users and admins can see and restore it for 93 days, but this really depends on how you've set up the site administration for OneDrive for Business. Like I said earlier, there are ways for admins to go and be for SharePoint admins to go in and be the main admins of these OneDrive for Business sites. There's also preservation policies that admins can set up and see and restore. Again, this is setting up a tool to make this happen, and you have to put people on hold before the data loss event happens. We're going to talk about this in depth in a second for what this actually entails when you're talking about rapid recovery. So one extra thing that Microsoft does do with SharePoint Online, and that includes OneDrive for Business sites, is that they back up site collections every 12 hours. And these they keep for 14 days. So a couple of things about this that you need to know. It's a site level restore, so you can't really go back in and just get one or two files. And also, if the file that was deleted is older than 14 days, it's not going to be in the backups and they won't be able to restore it. So there's a little bit more of something from Microsoft, sort of, but the idea of restoring it rapidly, getting everybody back to work, back into production, may or may not be there with Microsoft's backups here. Again, I really urge you, go to community.office365.com, search for restore with any of these applications that you're deploying on Office 365, and look and see what Microsoft support especially has to say. So the top one talks about somebody who had a whole bunch of research-related material, used what looks like to be the older sync client. It never synced, but it deleted everything off of his end device and never made it into OneDrive for Business. So like I said, Microsoft's got a new gen client, sync client, that they're working with and that they're pushing out. It works for everybody except people on Windows 8.1. But the thing is when you're thinking about protecting your data, having it there, having it always there because it's your business data you rely on, sync clients are software. Sometimes people push out software updates that may not do what we expect. So it's always good to have your data protected. Another big thing, and this applies across the board with all the applications, is kind of how you offboard users. So on that second admin, someone's asking about what happens when you delete a user account. After in Office 365, after it's been 30 days, that data is gone. It's purged from the tenant. So you have to have some kind of plan going into administering and taking care of people on Office 360, your users on Office 365. You have to have a plan for what happens when the users leave. Do I need to keep the data that they generated, and how do I keep that data that's generated? The Microsoft support side is the answer to that bottom admin question. They can't restore the data because it's not there anymore. All right. So maybe you're thinking, wait. Microsoft has these great compliance tools in the Compliance Center. Aren't those made to keep an extra copy of my data? They are. But now let's step back to what we've all learned and what we all know from being admins on premises. Backups are not the same as archives. They have two completely different purposes in life, and we need to remember that because the software for both are built to do things to meet those separate purposes. So backup systems are built so that you have a copy of production data someplace close on hand that you can rapidly restore back into production so that work keeps flowing quickly. Archive systems absolutely keep a copy of data and changes to every data. They're designed to meet regulatory compliance and data retention rules. So they're designed to hold onto this data for a long, long time. We've all heard about the digital explosion. We've all experienced what it's like to have to deal with the digital explosion and manage that data. So these archival systems are built to keep the data in such a way that it's there if you need it at some point in time to put together a story for a lawyer who summoned your company for all of this data. It's not necessarily for you to go and grab a folder that your VP accidentally deleted and put it back there because he's got a presentation in 3 hours. Two different use cases. So let's walk through what Microsoft has. So for Exchange, you can put people on litigation hold. This is part of their archive service offering. It is free for E3 and above. It's $3 a month as an add-on. Again, it's not made to restore emails back into production. And with all of these things, with all of keeping anybody on any type of litigation hold or archival hold, the thing you've got to think about is, number one, if you talk to your legal team about this, do you want to put everybody on litigation hold? If you do, there is a chance that you are actually creating a legal risk for your company. Because if everybody's on litigation hold, everything that anybody is sending and creating is being saved. If I'm a lawyer, I come in and I say, I want you to give me all of the items that pertain to this particular case. I can get anybody's emails because you've kept it. So that's one thing. Talk to your legal team. Do you want everybody on litigation hold? Number two, the legal team that is working with litigation hold needs the ability to search the emails for this particular case in files with OneDrive for Business and SharePoint Online. They need the ability to search those to get all of the content that they do need to package together as a legal response to this request for all of this information. If you've got all the data that everybody in your company is creating being fed into these archival systems, you're going to make your legal team's job really, really hard. And the biggest thing is it's not meant to restore data rapidly back into production. You need a backup system for that. So what OneDrive for Business has and SharePoint Online has is preservation policies. There's no add-on capability, so you can't buy this extra. It's only available for E3 licenses and above. A global admin sets up a special site collection that's called an e-discovery center and adds a special security group for e-discovery managers. And those managers are the ones that create these cases, put the content on hold, and they're usually people that are also associated with your company's legal team. So they know what they're looking for. They know who to keep on hold, who not to keep on hold. You are able to export search results in the same. But like we talked about, this is going to be an entire site. It's going to be difficult to get down to the folder your VP accidentally deleted. Restores are awful complicated if you're doing them from these archival products. We did a video that you can go and look at that walks you through restoring deleted emails from Exchange Online using the e-discovery process. These emails were on litigation hold, and then restoring them back into Exchange Online. It is pretty complicated. It takes a long time. Totally urge you to go watch the video. Bottom line is, any of the data that you're putting into Office 365 needs protection. It needs backup protection so that you can restore rapidly into production and keep your business flowing. You would have never deployed Exchange or OneDrive. You would have never done this on premises without a backup system. You're going to lose data the same way as you did on premises. How are you going to restore that data if you don't have a real backup? This is where we come in. We're spanning backup for Office 365. We do backup and recovery for Office 365. We support mail, calendars, and soon OneDrive for Business. Offer complete status monitoring and unlimited storage. Best of all, we're silver partners with Microsoft. We work really closely with them to decide how we back these things up and what's coming soon to what we'll back up next. Our application is seamlessly integrated into Office 365. So not only can admins restore data, users are empowered to restore their own data. This is so collaboration doesn't grind to a halt. Restore the data, keep right going. That's why you got Office 365 in the first place, to make your end users super collaborative. The users and admins can use spanning from any device. It fits nicely in with Microsoft's mobile-first policies. And we are a SaaS backup application too, so it's cloud-first. We don't bring any of this data to ground. We back up from Microsoft's cloud to our cloud. So what we do across all of the Microsoft applications, and actually pretty much across all of the applications, all of the different SaaS providers we support, is we do daily automated and on-demand app backups. You can view and look for different snapshots, their point in time, and you restore from those. You can search for these files across your backups to figure out which ones you need to restore. You can restore any backed up version of a file. And admins can even restore to a different user if that's a good thing to do. I'm going to show you how all that works here in just a second. This is Spanning's architecture, very high-level overview of it. What we do is we use the APIs that Office 365 provides for the different applications. And this is how we back the different applications and files up, and this is how we restore them. We're also secure. That's another reason you trust Microsoft with this data and you trust it to go into their cloud. So we're SSA 16 SOC 2 compliant. Basically what that means is we have really, really good processes in our cloud, and we'll take really good care of your data. HIPAA compliant. Encryption, we do 256-bit AES at rest, and then SSL encryption in transit. And operational security, these are the things that help us pass our compliance audits all the time. We're constantly testing and making sure all the data is safe. The app itself is super simple to use. You really, literally do not need any training to use it. What I'm showing here is what the admin will see. The way we work when you first sign in to Spanning, we ask you to authorize us with Office 365. Once you've authorized us and we're a trusted app for you for Office 365, we'll go and we'll query your Azure AD instance, and we'll get a list of who all your users are. And we'll show you these in a managed license screen, and you can decide who actually will get backups, who gets a Spanning license or not. And as you can see in this screen, you can either just look at the users really quickly. If there's a green dot, you know you're good. If there's a yellow dot, you know there's some failures. If there's a red dot, you know there's something you need to go and pay attention to. And when you open up the app, you can see that, again, you can see if there were any errors, you can see the last time there were backups, how many items were backed up. It's really simple to see. This is the way we do rapid restores. This, again, is a user. This is what a user or an admin would see once he chose a user to back up. You can search for the item you want to back up a couple of different ways. You can go back to a specific date and time if you know exactly where the item is that you need to restore. Or you can search, and it'll go across all the emails in this person's account and search for the email that needs to be restored. Like I said, admins can also do a cross-user restore. So maybe the person that was running the company all-hands meeting, Carol, is going to move on to a different position, so she can't do that anymore. So an admin could go and grab that calendar invite and restore it to a different user. Now this screen, where it shows the same user and different user, only admins will see that. Users won't see this. They'll only see if they want, they'll only be asked if they want to include attendees on meetings. So once the admin has said, yeah, let's go ahead and let's move this company all hands meeting invite series over to Carlton, he can take that over for now. You'll get confirmed, are you sure you want to do that? And it'll get sent over to Carlton's calendar. This is where you'll look to see that this is actually happening, confirm resource status while it's going on, and you can track it as it's going. Once it is restored to Carlton's calendar, we do the restores non-destructively. So he'll get a separate calendar that says restored on date, that's what the calendar is, and he can move that invite and then start running the meetings without a huge disruption and trying to figure out who the attendees were, what was the time, what room was it in, all those kind of things that kind of slow us down because they take a little while. We can restore and make that easier. And you can do those restores to different users on an entire mailbox level, entire file level. So it makes it really nice if you don't have a way to offboard your users, because remember, after 30 days, all of that information from their account that they've generated is going to be deleted off the Office 365 tenant. So spanning gives you a really nice way to be able to restore this to the next person coming in, to their manager, whatever policy you want to put in place for offboarding those users. So spanning is also very transparent. So this is a past activity page. It shows everything that's gone on by admin. So whether they've done a restore or looked at a user's backed up, it shows up in this immutable log. So that's how spanning works. And as you can see, there are definitely some spaces where you can lose data in Office 365. And with any SaaS provider, you definitely need to back your data up. You need to have it so you can restore it rapidly back into production, because users and admins are going to do the same things in the cloud that they did on premises. But if you want to know some more reasons why, would love to invite you to check out this 10 reasons you need SaaS data protection on our resources pages, or just start a free trial. It's really easy to do. And the link is right there, spanning.com, start a free trial. Were there any questions during the session today?
We do have some questions that have come in, Gina, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into those. The first one is, do you support OneDrive for Business?
We will be releasing support for OneDrive for Business very soon, in the next couple of months, so definitely stay tuned.
Very good. Next question is, does spanning store backups on premises?
We do not. We operate on a complete SaaS model ourselves. So our philosophy is, if you spent all this time and you've gone to the cloud to gain all of those efficiencies in your data center, why would you want to put it back? Why would you want to have your backups in your data center? So we store it in our cloud, and that's where we back up and recover from, completely using APIs.
And we have one more question, which is it possible to export the data spanning backs up?
Yes, it is possible to export from our email right now. I believe the other ones, not yet. Those are all on our roadmap, so.
Very good. Well, that's all the time we have for the questions that we weren't able to get to, and a few others did come in. We will be forwarding those on to Gina to follow up with you after the session. So I want to thank everyone for joining this session, and on behalf of msexchange.org, I want to thank you, Gina, and Spanning by EMC for helping make it possible for us to bring you today's session and today's event.
Thanks so much for having us. This was a lot of fun.
Well, you're welcome. Great having you with us, and I want to remind our audience to not forget to join us for the next focus session using the separate link for that session, which is available in your confirmation email and at the Twitter hashtag Office365EXCHCON. That will conclude this session. Thanks again for joining us, and you may now disconnect.